I was brushing my teeth when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick it up. Hello, this is Ms. Emily Carter, correct? Yes, speaking. This is from Western Financial Bank. We're following up on the outstanding loan of $722,000 under your name. Your payment is overdue. Would you like to discuss a repayment plan? I froze. For a second, I thought it was a prank. I think you've got the wrong person, I said, gripping the sink for balance. No, ma'am. This loan was processed 11 months ago. You're the primary applicant and responsible for repayment. My heart started pounding. What are you talking about? I didn't take any loan. I never signed anything. There must be a mistake. We have your digital signature and identification details. If you like, we can email the documents to verify. I didn't say a word. My mouth went dry. They had my name, my ID, my details, but I had no idea this loan even existed. After I hung up, my body felt numb. I sat on the cold bathroom floor, trying to remember. Had I ever signed something by mistake? Was this some scam? But deep inside, a sick feeling started forming. I knew something wasn't right. Not with the bank, but with my own family. They had always treated me like an afterthought. I was the quiet one, the obedient daughter, the one who stayed home and didn't argue. My older brother and younger sister always came first. I was told I wasn't smart enough to handle business matters, that I should just stay out of financial stuff and be a good girl. But this? A $722,000 loan in my name? Without a single word to me. I rushed my email, and there it was, documents from the bank. My name, my ID, my forged signature. My heart sank. The loan wasn't fake. It was real, and I was officially in debt for nearly $750,000. I couldn't breathe. In that moment, every sacrifice I'd ever made for my family flashed before me. Every time I said yes to keep the peace. Every time I let them make decisions for me. Every time I let myself shrink to make them comfortable. And this was the thanks I got? I didn't know yet how deep the betrayal went, or just how much they had done behind my back. But I made a quiet promise to myself right there on that bathroom floor. They thought I was weak. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. Growing up in the Carter household felt like being a spare tire, kept around, rarely acknowledged, but suddenly important when things went flat. My mom, Diane, had a sharp tongue and even sharper expectations, just never for me. Emily, not everyone's meant to shine, she'd say, waving her hand like swatting a fly. Some people are meant to support. Be useful at least, sweetheart. My older brother, Brandon, was the golden child. He could fail a college class and still get applauded at dinner. He's just under pressure, Mom would say, refilling his plate. And my sister, Alyssa, was the family jewel. Everything revolved around her. The way she looked, the way she spoke, even the way she threw tantrums. She's sensitive, they'd say, while I cleaned up the mess quietly in the background. I wasn't dumb. I noticed the pattern early on. When the fridge broke, I was the one figuring out how to get it fixed. When Brandon forgot to pay his credit card bill, I voluntarily made the payment to avoid Dad's rage. When Alyssa needed a ride across town in the rain, it was me who dropped everything. No one asked me to. They expected it, like breathing. What confused me more than the neglect was the possessiveness. Whenever I mentioned applying for out-of-state college programs, Mom would guilt-trip me. And leave us? Who will take care of everything here? You know, Brandon has his hands full. And Alyssa's still finding her feet. Dad didn't say much. He just nodded at Mom and added, "You're not ready to live alone, Emily. You're not built for that." I started to believe them. They dressed it up as love and protection, but it felt more like being caged. Every time I dared to dream for myself, they clipped my wings with a smile. "You're such a sweet girl," they'd say, as if being sweet meant being silent. At 27, I still lived at home. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to break free. I worked a part-time job at a local office while helping Mom manage errands. Brandon and Alyssa both had flashier lives, careers, relationships, plans. I had structure, obligations, and invisible chains. Looking back now, the warning signs were all there. The way Mom never let me handle my own mail. The way she always offered to keep my ID in a safe place. The way Brandon once joked, Emily's name is the cleanest one in the family. If we ever need a loan, we know who to call. They all laughed. I didn't. At the time, I thought they were just being weird. Family weird. But now I see it clearly. They weren't protecting me. They were grooming me for something bigger, something I couldn't have imagined. And they were about to find out just how wrong they were about me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. After the bank call, I spent hours digging through my personal files and scrolling through old emails, trying to make sense of the mess. But the more I searched, the more I felt like I was unraveling some twisted conspiracy that I wasn't a part of. And the deeper I went, the clearer it became. It all started with a simple email I found buried in my inbox. It was from my mom, dated just over a year ago. "Emily, just a small favor," it read. "Could you please keep an eye on some documents I need to submit? I'll handle the rest. Don't worry about it." My mom had been handling things for as long as I could remember, so I didn't think much of it at the time. But this email, this was different. It was part of a chain of messages detailing the loan application process. I pulled up the loan documents from the bank and stared at the digital signature, which was, without a doubt, a forgery. My name was on it, but it wasn't my handwriting. I had never signed any paperwork for a loan in my life. But the forged signature wasn't the worst part, it was the amount. $722,000. I dialed the bank again, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can you tell me what the loan was used for?" The silence on the other end was almost deafening. The loan was approved for a variety of purposes, including a home purchase and a family event. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "A family event?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What event?" "A wedding," the bank representative said casually. "The loan was processed in your name to fund your sister's wedding and your brother's house." The room spun as the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. They'd used my name, my identity, to secure a loan without my knowledge or consent, just to fund my sister's extravagant wedding and my brother's overpriced house. My sister had been the center of attention for months, flaunting her bridal gown, while my brother proudly showed off his new house to all of their friends. I suddenly recalled every conversation I'd overheard in passing. Moments when Brandon talked about how expensive his house was going to be, or when Alyssa made offhand comments about her dream wedding. But they never mentioned me. Not once. I felt the sting of betrayal cut deep, not just from the loan, but from the years of being manipulated into thinking I was just a small part of their world, a quiet presence, nothing more. The realization hit harder than I could have imagined. My family had taken everything from me, using my name like it was nothing, while I stayed trapped in their web. They had played me, and I was too blind to see it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to storm over there and confront them all, but I knew I needed something more, something solid, something they couldn't talk their way out of. It was time to fight back, and I was going to make them regret ever thinking they could use me. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I had to confront them, had to make them face what they had done. After everything I uncovered, I wasn't going to let them pretend like nothing had happened. That night, I waited until dinner was over. Brandon was lounging on the couch with his phone. Alyssa was showing off some new piece of jewelry she had gotten for her honeymoon, and my mom was in the kitchen, as usual, making sure everything was perfect. Dad was already half drunk, staring blankly at the TV. I felt the tension building in my chest. I slammed the loan documents onto the dining table, the sound cutting through the air like a knife. Everyone froze. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice sharp with fury. "You've been using my name to take out a loan. For Alyssa's wedding and Brandon's house. Without telling me, without asking me, what the hell is wrong with you?" Alyssa's face dropped instantly, but Brandon didn't even flinch. He just looked up from his phone, completely unbothered. Mom, on the other hand, didn't even seem surprised. She walked over to the table, picking up the papers slowly, and then turned to face me with a calm smile, as though I was the one overreacting. "Emily, sweetheart," she said, her tone dripping with faux sweetness. "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. You're our daughter. We had to do what was necessary for the family. Alyssa's wedding couldn't wait, and Brandon's house was a great opportunity. You're not using your potential, darling." I blinked, completely stunned. What? My potential? You stole my identity, Mom. You forged my signature to get a loan. You didn't even ask me. Mom sighed like she was explaining something to a child who just didn't understand. Oh, Emily, she said softly, as though I were the problem. At least be of some use to your family. We've given you everything you need. We've kept you safe, taken care of you. What else are you good for, if not helping us when we need it? Her words felt like a slap across my face. I wanted to scream, to throw the truth in their faces and make them see how cruel they had been. But her calm demeanor and the cold logic in her voice made it worse. It was as if she truly believed she was in the right. Brandon finally looked up, giving me a bored glance. Come on, Emily, don't act so innocent. You're not going anywhere, are you? What difference does it make? You live here. You don't have anything else going on. Just think of it as helping the family. I clenched my fists. Helping the family? I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. You used me as your personal cash cow without a single thought about me, about what I wanted. You all treated me like I didn't matter. Mom shrugged. You're our daughter, Emily. We know you'll forgive us. You always do. Don't make a scene. The word stung. It wasn't just the loan, it was everything. The years of manipulation, the constant use of my good nature to get what they wanted. And now they were acting like this was all normal, like I was the one being unreasonable. Forgive you, I whispered, my heart racing. No, not this time. I turned and walked away, each step taking me farther from the family I thought I knew. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. The days after that confrontation felt like I was walking through a fog. I couldn't stop replaying what had happened at the dinner table. My mom's calm dismissal, Brandon's indifference. Their words echoed in my head over and over, crushing any sense of self-worth I had left. I sank into the couch, numb. Everything around me felt like a lie, a game I had never been told I was part of. I'd spent my life catering to their needs, smoothing over their messes, but when it came down to it, I was just a tool, a pawn in their hands. And now, I was the one holding the pieces of my shattered reality. I spent days locked in my room, drowning in a pool of self-doubt. My mind couldn't escape the image of my family standing there, acting like nothing was wrong. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was heartbroken, betrayed, and I couldn't figure out how to get out of this dark hole I'd fallen into. But then something inside me shifted. It wasn't immediate, but it was gradual, like the flicker of a light that was just starting to break through the darkness. I realized I couldn't stay in this broken state. I couldn't let them define my worth. Not anymore. I stood up, my hands shaking, but I didn't care. I started grabbing papers, the loan documents, my old bank statements, emails from my family, and I laid them all out. The more I read, the more I realized that I had been part of this twisted story for too long. They hadn't just stolen money from me. They had stolen my future, my dreams. But that wasn't going to be the end of it. I picked up my phone and started searching for a lawyer. A good one. A lawyer who would help me fight back against this web of lies and deception. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was done being a victim. Done letting them control me. I called a lawyer who specialized in identity theft and fraud. The moment I explained my situation, I could hear the shock in her voice. This is serious, she said. You have a strong case. We'll take this to court. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the first step toward taking back control of my life. They had stolen so much from me, but they weren't going to steal my power anymore. I wasn't broken. I was awakening, and I was ready to fight. It felt surreal, making those first steps toward justice. I spent the next few weeks gathering every shred of evidence, every document that proved my family's betrayal. The lawyer I'd hired was efficient, ruthless even, and I could see the change in her eyes when I laid out everything my family had done. This isn't just a loan issue, she said, her voice cold with professional certainty. This is fraud, and we're going to make them pay for it. I had never thought of myself as someone who could take on a legal battle like this, but the more I worked with my lawyer, the more confident I became. I wasn't just fighting for the money they'd stolen from me. I was fighting for my dignity, my freedom, and my future. The first step was filing the fraud charges. My family never saw it coming. I knew they thought I would just crumble, retreat into the background like I always had. But I wasn't that girl anymore. This time, I wasn't going to let them silence me. When the papers were served, officially accusing them of fraud, identity theft, and falsifying documents, the look on my mom's face when she received that envelope was priceless. I had to hide my smile when I heard the knock at the door. My mom opened it, only to be handed a court summons. "Mom, what is this?" Alyssa's voice echoed in the hallway. She sounded genuinely confused, but there was a layer of fear in her tone. I stayed in the next room, listening intently. They didn't even know what hit them. The panic started almost immediately. I could feel it in my bones as the days passed. The first phone call I got was from my mom, and she was begging me to drop the case and think of the family. Her words dripped with desperation, but I didn't flinch. Think of the family? I repeated her words, my voice now steady and unwavering. You think of the family, but not once did you think of me. You used me to get what you wanted, and now you'll pay the price. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. She tried to reason with me, but I didn't care. The truth had been exposed. She had forged my signature, used me as her pawn, and now there was no going back. As the court case loomed closer, I could hear the panic rising. Brandon was calling me, telling me to settle this privately, but it was too late for that. They were terrified. The facade of perfect family unity was crumbling, and the reality of their lives was now impossible to escape. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about showing them that I wasn't afraid. I was taking control, and I was going to make sure they faced the consequences of what they had done. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I could feel the weight of it settling in my chest. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a battle for everything I had been denied for years. As I entered the courtroom, my heart raced, but there was also a strange sense of empowerment. I was no longer the quiet, invisible daughter. I was taking control of my life, of my future. The moment we sat down, I saw them, the people who had betrayed me, sitting in the same room, trying to maintain their composure. My mother, ever the picture of false confidence, had her usual smug look, but I could see the cracks beginning to show. Brandon, who had always been the golden child, was fidgeting nervously. Alyssa was trying to act like she wasn't affected, but her eyes darted back and forth, unable to hide the anxiety. The trial began and the evidence was laid out. The forged signatures, the false claims, the financial records that proved how they had stolen from me, using my name to take out loans they had no intention of repaying. One by one, their lies unraveled. The lawyers' questions cut through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. They tried to deny it at first, but the truth was undeniable. The documents didn't lie. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, when the court ordered the seizure of the assets they had fraudulently obtained. Brandon's beautiful new house, the one he had been so proud of, was taken away. I could almost hear the breath leave his body as the judge pronounced the decision. His expression was one of disbelief, a mix of shock and fury. He had thought he was untouchable, but now he was being forced to give it all up. Alyssa's perfect wedding, the one she had flaunted for months, was also a lie. It wasn't her money that funded it, it was mine. And now the consequences were hitting her hard. As the judge ruled on the case, her marriage, built on illusions of wealth and grandeur, began to crack. Her husband, who had supported her during her lavish spending spree, stood by her side in the courtroom, but the tension between them was palpable. Their marriage was falling apart right before our eyes. But it was my mother's downfall that hit the hardest. I had always thought of her as someone who could manipulate any situation to her advantage. But seeing her face when the ruling came down was something I would never forget. She had lost it all. Her reputation, the house that had been in the family for years, and any sense of control she once had, gone in an instant. She had always believed she could keep me beneath her, but now she was the one who was buried under the weight of her lies. It was over. The family I had once tried to protect was crumbling, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, and I had won. The moment the court case ended, I felt like I was shedding an old skin. It was as if the years of being suffocated by my family's manipulation, the weight of their betrayal, all melted away. The legal victory had been sweet, yes, but the true reward was the freedom that came with it. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was living for someone else. I was living for me. I decided to leave behind the place that had become a prison in my mind. I moved to a new city, one where no one knew my name, no one had any expectations of me, and I could start fresh. The apartment I found wasn't much, but it was mine. It smelled like new beginnings. The quiet in the evenings, the stillness, was something I had longed for. I woke up each day with a sense of peace that I had never known. With time, I started to feel like myself again. I took up painting, something I had always loved but never had the time or energy for. I made new friends who didn't want anything from me. They appreciated me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. Slowly but surely, I found my voice again, the one I had buried under years of pleasing others. I began to feel strong, and not just in the legal sense. I felt powerful in knowing that I was in control of my own life, that I no longer had to live in the shadow of their demands. The hurt that had once seemed so overwhelming was replaced by a quiet confidence. I wasn't perfect, but I was finally me, and that was enough. As for my family, they had paid the price. Their lives had fallen apart in ways they couldn't control. Brandon lost the house that he'd been so proud of, his dreams shattered. Alyssa's perfect wedding and facade of happiness crumbled. And my mother? She was left with nothing. No reputation, no power, no one to manipulate. Her world had unraveled, and there was nothing she could do about it. I had finally broken free. The karma had come full circle. And now I was living for myself, stronger, happier, and more content than I had ever been.